Welcome back to Let's Talk to Animals, the podcast all species can enjoy together. My name is Shannon Cutts. I am an animal sensitive and intuitive, a Reiki master practitioner, and an animal communication teacher with animallovelanguages.com. And for our purposes here today, I am also your friendly neighborhood hostess and guide through the wild, wise, and wonderful world of interspecies communication. Call me crazy, but I truly believe that animal communication has the power to save, heal, and restore our planet for all species to enjoy and share. When we learn to communicate with one another, we begin to realize we are so much more alike than different. We care about each other. We become friends. On this podcast, we talk about what the animals have to say and share, and why our pets truly are our partners, empathic friends, and teachers. I am so glad you have joined us here for this fresh new episode of Let's Talk to Animals. So let's dive in. Welcome back to Let's Talk to Animals, the podcast all species can enjoy together. We are continuing, picking up where we left off in part 2 of our 2-part energy alignment series. If you have not listened to part 1 yet, that was the episode on energy alignment so that you can help your pet find calm and support them through anything. So you'll want to go back and listen to that first. And when you're done, pop back over here and we are going to go deeper. We're going to talk about energy alignment for better into animal communication. So if you are not yet one of my students, I will link up my mastery program in the show notes below. If you are one of my students, or if you have been studying elsewhere, you're going to want to pay close attention because I'm going to guide you through the foundational principles of aligning your energy for the clearest, calmest, and most supportive conversations, primarily with your own animals, also on behalf of other pet parents. If you are offering sessions as a volunteer, or maybe you're a pro like I am, and you are conducting animal communication sessions to help pet parents and their pets talk with one another, then you'll want to pay close attention and just see where your current toolkit and personal protocols line up with what I am about to share with you. And keep in mind, this is how I teach my students. This is how I personally set myself up for success for every animal communication conversation that I translate for, that I facilitate for. And I encourage you to take what you hear today and make it your own. I am not here to tell you the way, my way, or no other way. I'm here to offer you a set of protocols that has personally worked for me and seems to be working very well for my students, judging by the feedback that I get from them, and also the fact that many of these protocols were co-created with my students over the years. So responding to their questions and their stumbling blocks and their frustrations and their goals, and putting together some foundational principles to set you up for success and stability, recognizing that, as we talked about in part 1, life is just going to keep lifing. We wake up in the morning every single morning, and it's a very brave act because we really literally do not know what is waiting for us when we swing our legs over the side of the bed and take our first steps into a brand new day. We don't know what's waiting for us with our pets. We don't know what's waiting for us with ourselves. So I encourage you to consider how you might adopt some of these protocols before you even get out of bed. In fact, I have a ritual that I have done over the years for many, many years, and I never get out of bed without it, ever, no matter what is going on. So the key with a morning ritual, a first thing in the morning ritual, is it needs to be quick. It needs to be on autopilot. You need to train yourself to do it. We talked in the last episode about your reticular activating system. This is like your personal trained brain bot. And if you can train your reticular activating system to seek for this? Did I do this? Okay, check. And if I didn't, I'm not getting out of bed until I do. So it needs to be a quick ritual that is very grounding and very supportive for you before you take that first step into your day. And this is especially vital when you're stepping into a day that's filled with conversations. And what's so fun, and one of the neatest hacks that my students just love, is that everything that we're about to talk about today and everything that I teach inside the mastery program, it works really well for all species, not just non-human animals. This stuff works really well for human animals too. All of my conversation skills with my fellow human animals have also improved quite a bit since I started understanding how energy flows, how energy is a communication channel, how to tell the difference between what's flowing out from me and what is flowing to me from another being, what I do with it, the amount of personal power I have to make my own choices about how I interact in this world. So all of this is available to you as you begin working with these protocols. So that leads us to the first tip, if you will, that I have for you today as you're setting yourself up for success as an animal communicator with your own pets, perhaps with wild animals, with shelter pets, with other people's animals, is to learn how to manage your own energy. The communication itself is only as clear as the communication channel. Guess where the communication channel is? Guess who the communication channel is? It's you. You are the communication channel. If you've ever worked with one of those old school analog radio dials and had that frustration of trying to switch back and forth and find a clear channel to listen to, you already understand what happens when our energy gets stagnant, when it gets clogged, when it gets redirected, when we're not here, when we're not present, when we're not focused, when we're not calm. It's like adding static to the channel. If you ever use one of those white noise generators to sleep at night, if you live in a noisy area, that's another example. It kind of feels like there's a white noise in the communication channel. So you're having to work extra hard to pick out what's coming from me, what's coming from my animal conversation partner, and what's just coming from the white noise or the static that my daily lifing is kicking up. So this is your training ground. Now understand, as a developing intuitive, whether you're working psychically, mediumistically, you're working in an animal communication setting, it is a healing journey. It is a soul awakening journey. This is why when pet parents come to my intuitive development for pet parents workshops, my free trainings, when they come through my challenges and they say, I don't think I can do this, and yet here I am again. That is because it's a soul calling to wake up. It doesn't make logical sense to the left-brained, intellectual, analytical mind, which doesn't have access to the subconscious pathway through which imagination and intuition flow. So when you find yourself turning up again and again, getting sucked back in by yet another invitation to develop your intuitive pathways, it is your soul responding, not your left brain mind, not your logical mind that goes, do I really have time for this in my calendar? Am I happy enough with the results I got with the last class I took or the last training I took in order to justify showing up here? The soul does not justify. The soul moves. The soul is present in each moment, feeling for what feels like the next right step. Again, that is what we talked about in part 1. So when your soul is feeling for what feels right, you find yourself turning up again. You find yourself listening to a podcast called Let's Talk to Animals, even though there's an aspect of you that's saying to you, I can't do this, or I'll never get beyond hit or miss in my intuition. I just ran a free 28-day challenge for developing your intuitive pet parenting skills. And part of that challenge was inviting the participants to self-score on how much they trust their own intuition. And the majority of the participants said they would rate themselves between a 4 and a 7. When it works, it works. When it doesn't, it doesn't. Now, there's an element of that for all of us. because we're human. We're not bots. We're not automated. We're not perfect. And so that's where the development piece comes in. But if we want to move from a 4 to 7 range to more of like an 8 or 9 range, we have to recognize that this is a healing journey. Most of us come into this journey in adulthood. Many of us have memories of when we were small, when we were children. Maybe we naturally understood the communication going on around us. Maybe we were naturally drawn to it. I remember going and just sitting with flocks of birds and just seeking out animals. If I would see a horse or a roadrunner or a frog around the lake, and I would just want to go and interact. It didn't seem alien to me. It wasn't until I got older and I realized that not everybody did that, and people thought it was really weird when I did it. And I started to shut that side of myself down. So you probably have come to this learning journey, this healing journey with some old wounds, some old messages that tell you there's something weird about you. There's something weird about this. It's not weird. It's biological. It is natural. It is part of our genetic wiring, and it is unnatural to deny it. So we have to understand that it's our soul's call to wake up. And the first lesson is all about our energy. Where am I stuck? Where am I blocked? That is not, I can't do this. I'm not intuitive. That is, there's something in the way. Often it's a mind, often it's an old wound or old faulty programming. It's a bug in our software, in our biological software that says you're not intuitive, when in fact, you absolutely are, because it's part of our survival system. There are no non-intuitive humans in this world. So when you start to encounter these experiences of, I can't do this, or it's just hit or miss, or I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to give up and ask everybody else, or I'm just going to take more classes and never actually come to practice. It's surprising to me how many of my students will sign up for my live Zoom practice circle and then not show. Sometimes that's because of time zone or work commitments, but sometimes it's because of fear. And trust me when I say that I relate to that, because my first experiences were the same way. I had some old, outdated programming that I needed to clear. And when I cleared it, I began to take my personal power back, to make my own choices, to say, I understand there are no guarantees when I show up for practice circle, or when I sign up for this course, or when I say yes to talk with a friend's animal for them. I don't have any guarantees that I'm going to quote unquote get anything, that I'm quote unquote going to get it right. And that's a whole other conversation to have about getting it right versus the animal's perspective, and recognizing we don't know everything about our own animals. We don't know everything about our animals' lives. So getting it right is kind of a fallacy of its own. But when we recognize, when our soul says, I understand what's going on here, I'm the call to wake up. I am answering the call to evolve, to grow. There's lots of talk about the 5D. The 5D is about recognizing that we exist beyond the boundaries of our 3D left brain logical mind and our physical skin. There's enough research that supports this for those of us who need the research as proof. But if you've ever stood next to somebody who was really anxious, or if you've ever turned around and felt like someone was staring at you only to discover that you were right, you already have enough anecdotal qualitative data for yourself to put that fear to rest. Yes, this is real. Yes, our energy extends beyond the boundaries of our physical skin. Yes, we have two brain hemispheres. We have the intellectual, verbal, left brain, logical hemisphere, and we have the hemisphere that humanity forgot, the right brain, imaginative, subconscious, and sensory hemisphere. And we need them both, and they are both extremely powerful. So the first step, if you want clearer animal communication conversation results, is to recognize I am doing this. Why? Because I want to, and my soul won't shut up about it, and I'm running out of excuses. And because I am okay with the fact that this is a brave act on my part. And I recognize that. And I am saying yes because I want to experience this. I just want to know that I can. I want to know that it's possible. Sometimes there's also a deep inner calling for a new community. a community of like-hearted souls. If you've ever felt yourself feeling frustrated by the shallow, surfacey conversation with your own species, if you've ever found yourself, like I really used to do, wishing you could change species to be a better version of yourself and feeling blocked, like I can't become the fullest version of myself in this context, that is also a soul calling for a new community. And we don't develop new community until we show up in the community that we want to be a part of. So it's also a calling about who do you want to surround yourself with? Who do you want to spend your time with? Many of my students have commented over the years in our live practice circles and in our small groups and our workshops. This is the only place where I feel like I can say anything and be fully myself. And I don't have to hide parts of myself. And I don't have to dumb down or dim my light. And I don't have to cut off part of my interests because I know they won't be understood, or they'll even be ridiculed, or they'll be met with questioning or fear. It is a kindness to not push other humans beyond where they're ready to go. But that does not mean that you should hold yourself back from where you are ready to go. So managing your energy, understanding what is going on here. Why am I drawn back to this topic, to this experience? Why am I so curious about it? And what am I going to do about it? So it's about getting off the fence. When we sit on the fence, not only does it get very uncomfortable, but it absolutely removes us from the ability to take action. We will not choose. And when we do not choose, we have no power. So when you choose, I am going in this direction. I'm going wholeheartedly. I want to see what I can do in this area. I want to find out what I'm made of. When I was first starting my own intuitive learning journey, this was before I'd even signed up for an animal communication course. Those of you who have been following Let's Talk to Animals for a while, you probably remember the episodes where I talk about my personal story of how I became a professional animal communicator. And I will link that episode up in the show notes for you if you're new and you haven't listened to it yet. But in the very, very earliest days, I received information in a meditation. A little voice that I've come to trust over the decades said to me unmistakably, very calmly, very simply, when I was minding my own business in meditation, doing something completely different, I heard the words, "You are an animal sensitive and intuitive." And I was so intrigued, but I had no idea what that meant. And luckily, I was already studying intuition. So when I had a session with my intuitive coach at the time, she said, "Oh, you're an animal communicator. That's a brilliant career path for you." So this started with a little anonymous tip, if you will. And regardless of how that has come through for you, to you, just know that if you are listening to this podcast out of the zillions available to you right now, you have also received a version of that message. And what it requires now is you saying, "That's interesting. I want to learn more." And when I first started this learning journey, I felt like there were parts of me that were coming online that I had no idea were there. And I was on the cusp of turning 50. I had completely divorced myself from the younger version of me who had been Reiki attuned, the version of me that had been meditating since I was 18. I had completely divorced myself from the child who could spend hours out in the fields just communing with nature. We used to go to these music festivals I come from a family of musicians, and we would go to these music festivals that were kind of in the middle of the plains of Midwest America, and there was lots of wildlife. And I would wander away from everybody else and go visit the horses or go walk around the lake or go look for birds. And I had completely divorced myself from that side of myself. So it took this soul call to bring me back and to help me recognize that there was a lot more here. And so that's the biggest aspect of managing your energy, is recognizing how much you are an energetic being having an embodied experience. These bodies are like cars. They have turn signals, they can back up, they can move forward, they can circle around, they can run the radio all day, they can roll down the windows, they have all kinds of bells and whistles, they have infrared and all these subconscious pathways. We don't get a manual for them. So when you begin the intuitive journey, if you're anything like me, and I've found over the years, most of my students have a similar experience. Of course, I can only speak for my community, but as you're listening, you can ask yourself, where are there parts of me that have started to maybe come online a little bit where I thought, wow, I didn't know I could do know I could get intuitive messages like that. I didn't know that I could feel this deeply. I didn't realize that I had the ability to act that way in a crisis. For me, it was a couple of experiences in crisis situations with my fellow humans that actually really started to spike my awareness in how powerful I am. When I show up, I say yes, I step in with both feet and I ask for guidance. And I say, I'm here for it. I'm here for the experience. I am here for the learning journey. I am in. And you become very movable and very usable for the highest and best good of all when you're in that energetic state. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to come up against blocks, come up against obstacles, but just a reframe, as we talked about earlier, recognizing, oh, this is my growth journey. This is like I'm learning a new subject in school, and right now I don't really understand it. So I think I need a little extra coaching. I need a little extra tutoring. I need some support. I mean, one of the things that I offer to my students is a deeply discounted hour-long coaching rate. Most coaches offer $200-$300 for an hour, and I have a super secret low rate for my students because you will end up running up against blocks and obstacles that are really developmental milestones. They are really invitations for you to heal, first to reveal, then to heal, then to really understanding it's all about the energy and how it's flowing. And when it feels like it's getting stuck, it doesn't mean you can't do it. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It means you can and you are. And you may just need a little bit of targeted support, encouragement, and community to find the courage to keep going. So that's number one, is your relationship with you is everything. I hate to say it because we typically get into it because of our relationships with our pets, our relationships with other animals, our relationships with wild animals, our relationships with our plants, our relationship with the planet, and all that is. And we forget it's really about my relationship with me because I'm a microcosm of that macrocosm that I love so much and want to serve. So everything that goes on within us becomes fodder and fuel for our soul awakening journey. And those of us who are willing to engage fully with ourselves, within ourselves, are the ones that will grow the most and the ones who will have the clearest communications with animals. The second point I want to cover with you in this part 2 of our energy alignment 2-part series is taking a look at how intentional you are as you enter into new conversation you have with an animal, whether it is one of your own pets here or in spirit, whether it is somebody else's pet, partner, empathic friend and teacher, companion animal, whether it's a wild animal, maybe you're having a little challenge in your space and you're trying to create a harmonious co-living space with the wildlife around you. Maybe you're working with shelter animals like some of my students do, and you're helping them find a suitable new forever home. How we enter into everything we do matters. I've had students ask me, well, do I really need to do some kind of special ritual or routine before I have a conversation? And my answer is, well, it depends. What kind of conversation are you hoping to have? What kind of conversation are you setting yourself up to have? So, for instance, if I am just going to have a conversation with my neighbor about when the garbage pickup is for this week, I don't need to do any special ritual for that. If I'm going to stop into a grocery store and ask them where the papayas are, I don't need to prepare for that. If I want to talk with an animal about how they're doing and feeling, whether they like their food and their routine, if they need a friend while I'm at work during the day, what their last wishes are in their end of life, I want to prepare for them. I want to make sure that I bring both listening ears open and blaring on all channels. I want to make sure that anything else that could tug at my attention has been muted, paused for the duration. I want to set myself up for a safe, quiet, energetic space. Of course, we opened this episode talking about we are energetic beings. We are power generators. We talked about that in part 1. So we have to recognize when I show up with scattered energy, when I show up with leaking energy, when I show up focused on me instead of on my conversation partner, it absolutely impacts the quality and clarity of the communication, of the conversation. I'm not fully present. I'm not humble. I'm not teachable. I'm not here. It's the energetic equivalent of trying to have a deep conversation with somebody while they're texting on their phone or they're looking around the room for somebody else to talk to, or they are distracted by something else in their life and keep redirecting the conversation back to talk about themselves again instead of listening to you. That is the kind of conversation you're going to have if you do not learn how to manage your energy just prior to each communication you're going to have. I have gone through this too. I have screwed this up. It is painful when it happens. And this is where I'm coming from as I share this with you today. Inside Animal Communication Adventure to Mastery, which is my student learning program, we do something called the Prep to Connect ritual. And I guide my students to set up a ritual that works for them, an evolving ritual that may continue to grow and transform over time. Now, the key, I'm just going to cover the foundationals here for you today, but the key is number 1, just like that morning ritual that we were talking about earlier, before you even swing your legs over the side of your bed, this ritual needs to be pretty quick. It really doesn't need to take a long time. When I was first starting my learning journey, I had a pretty lengthy ritual. It took more than an hour. I would go outside, I would hug trees, I would walk barefoot, I would hum, I would gather crystals, I would burn incense. I did the whole works. Because I was very nervous. I was trying to calm myself. And so allow your ritual to be a little lengthy in the beginning, but recognize what we're really doing here is we're training our nervous system to do a certain thing at a certain time for a certain intention, a certain purpose, to direct our attention towards a specific being with a specific set of pathways opened up, turned on, attuned, and our listening ears and our humble, teachable heart. So at first, it's going to feel a little clunky. What do I want to do? How do I want to set up? How do I calm myself? Because you're learning to calm down. You're learning to show up. You're learning to come back home to your body. We human animals, especially in adulthood, when we're anxious or nervous about anything, tend to dissociate. We just leave the building. We leave the premises. We talk more about that in part 1 of this 2-part episode. So we have to come back home. So we have to have a simple ritual that brings us back home pretty quickly, especially if it's a kind of urgent conversation. We don't want to take 30 or 40 or 60 minutes to prepare for a conversation that needs to happen now. We want to take a few minutes. So in the beginning, go ahead, take some time, try different things out. But ideally, we're looking for something that takes 5 minutes or less. Something for us to check in with ourselves, check in with our energy, check in with our support system. I teach my students how to work with a light team if that's something that they're drawn to. These are helpers in the soul space and the etheric realms that show up with bells on when we ask. So there are lots of tools, spirit animals, our pets in spirit, our loves in spirit, angels, light team, light beings who will come in to help us. But we have to be intentional and create something consistent enough so that when we start doing it, our nervous system, and specifically our reticular activating system, says, I know what you're doing and I know what you're about to do. And we've done this before and it's totally safe. So you pop over into parasympathetic rest, digest, and reconnect. And you're able to simply be quiet and listen. So here's what I recommend. These are just the foundationals of your ritual or your preparation, if you will. We talked in the last episode about parasympathetic breathing, that deep inhalation and extended exhalation, and doing that at least 3 times. we talked about drinking lots of fresh water because hydrated cells are happy cells, oxygenated cells are intuitive cells, and our unique electromagnetic biochemistry requires hydration and oxygen to do its job for us. Intuitive everything seems so mysterious and woo-woo until we start to understand that there's a whole biochemical roadmap that supports it within us. I cover all of this inside of Animal Communication Adventure to Mastery, your IOS, your intuitive operating system, and your animal communication roadmap. How the communication comes in from the animal, how it interacts with your body and your neurochemistry, how it finally outputs in the form of shareable words, and then how you respond to the animal to send messages. There is a whole neurochemical network within you to support that. If you know that it's there, number one, and when you learn how to work with it instead of fighting it or pushing it away or downplaying it and doubting it, you start to set yourself up for success instead of inconsistency or outright failure. So the first thing that you want to do, as much as my recommendations, all my students know this, you want to drink plenty of water, you want to be fully oxygenated, you want to come back home into your body. And ideally, especially when you're practicing consistently, so you want to breathe, you want to drink lots of water, you want to be sure that you move your body before you settle in to have the conversation, because you need to be in your body in order to be using this biochemical network within you. So you need to be home inside your body. So moving your body, drinking lots of water, doing the parasympathetic breathing. So you're not in fight, flight, freeze. You're in tend, befriend, rest, digest, reconnect. And then you want to set an intention. We talked a lot about intention in part one, but you want to identify what is the highest and best outcome that I'm aiming for. I will share my personal working intention that has never changed since my very first conversation with animals. I choose to trust the animals to receive clear communication. It's always my intention. So come up with your own intention. What is your vision for the next 15 or 20 minutes or 5 or 10 minutes, however long you have, of two-way interspecies conversation? Who are you showing up as for this animal that you're going to talk with? How are you showing up for this animal that you are about to talk with? And what becomes possible when you do this? So that is your working intention. So there's just 4 simple things: breathing, drinking lots of water, moving your body, setting your intentions. So those are just the 4 pillars, the foundations of your prep to connect ritual that you can start working with. And over time, conversation by conversation, this will start to naturally align your energy for you, because it becomes its own new neural path. It becomes automatic, just like I have been doing my wake up routine, my little ritual that I talked about earlier, for so many years now that it actually feels weird if I don't do it. And that is how I notice and make sure that I stop and I do it before I get out of bed. And if I get out of bed for some reason and I haven't done it, I will get back in and I will do it. And then I will get back out again. But I have built a new neural pathway that expects that to happen. So when it doesn't, I get a little danger, danger, warning, warning message. Hey, you forgot something that you have let me know is really important. So let's take care of that before the day gets any older. Now, the next thing I want to share with you to align your energy for better, deeper, clearer, and more confident and supportive animal communication conversations is not just to move your body, but to move your mind regularly. Leonardo da Vinci is one of my heroes. I recently watched a full-length, I think it's like a 3-hour documentary on his life, and it was just fascinating. This individual, he never lost his curiosity. He would spend hours, days, weeks, months, years studying the movements of birds, of water, of trees, of humans, and other animals. Was endlessly fascinated by something, which is why I start all of my new students off with his 3 precepts: noticing, wondering, and getting curious. And I train my students the way Leonardo trained his students, by going out into the world and noticing. I start you with your pet. So this is something, just a little tidbit from the mastery program that you can start playing with. I'll link it up below. I have a 7 days of noticing practice. It's a free challenge that you can take with your pet to notice one new thing about them. It isn't just physical things that you look at and notice with your eyes. You're using all of your intuitive senses here. So beginning with your own animal, with your precious pet companion, to notice, to wonder, to get curious. You can do this anywhere. You can walk into the grocery store and you can notice something you've never noticed before. Pretend you're Leonardo da Vinci and you are seeking something extraordinary and tiny and so intriguing that nobody else but you is noticing. And this is what I mean by moving your mind regularly. Our minds tend to get very comfortable. Why? Because our neurology supports that. Comfortable is safe. Known is safe. But the unknown is where our soul awakens and our intuition begins to evolve. Our soul needs a different kind of movement than our 3D physical body and our left brain logical hemisphere. Our soul needs novelty and stimulation in order to evolve. In fact, novelty is how evolution of the species has occurred over the millennia. Somebody pops out with a new gene expression. It works better than the old stuff, and naturally it gets carried forward. So when you expose yourself, when you offer yourself novelty in the form of noticing, wondering, getting curious, following the playful nature of your heart that wants to go poke around and explore and experience new things, then you can't help but evolve intuitively. You can't help but evolve you can't help but bring your intuitive pathways online more clearly, more consistently, and more confidently, because you are exercising them. You're taking them out for a test drive. You're working with them. You're building a relationship. Inside the mastery program, I teach my students how to build what I call your inner lexicon of tells. This is your own secret intuitive language between you and you. It is unique to you, and it functions as a type of intuitive shorthand so that you become the animal communicator who trusts themselves, who trusts your inner guidance system to help you decode animal messages at deeper and deeper levels, more consistently, more confidently, and more clearly. So just understand this noticing, wondering, getting curious practice. It seems like it's something that a kindergartner could do, but that's the whole point, because your right brain, your subconscious, your intuition never grows up. This is why when scientists and researchers look for what they call genius traits, they find it in 98% of 6-year-olds. And by the time we're in our 30s, those traits are no longer visible. They're no longer manifesting because we just ignore them. We prioritize them. We do our utmost to turn them off. So if you want to have the open, empathic, the awake, aware soul of an intuitive, you must work out your right brain pathway. You must reawaken what Einstein called your imagination to intuition pathway. And that all happens through the right brain. Color, variety, novelty, noticing, this is the love language of your right brain hemisphere. And when you foster a relationship with this hemisphere, you are fostering a relationship with your inner faith senses, what we call your clairs, the clear seeing, clear hearing, clear smelling and tasting, clear sensing, clear feeling, and clear knowing. And the fourth thing I want to share with you, the fourth and final thing I want to share with you for this episode, I mentioned earlier, I just touched on a light team and how I train my students to work with a light team, We're not going to get into the whole particulars. You can certainly check out the link for the mastery program in the show notes to learn more about what the full program offers you. But for those of you who have, just know that one of the members of your light team, one of the members of your soul awakening support team who is always on call for you and always available for you to support you is your pet, your partner, empathic friend, and teacher. And why do I keep saying that? Because when I asked the pets, why do we call you a pet? What does the word pet mean? They said it's because we are your partners, empathic friends, and teachers. Such a no-brainer. So amazing, so simple. They so get it. They are in our lives for a reason. Out of the vast numbers of non-human animals alive on our planet right now, when you really think about it, you start noticing, wondering, and getting curious, the percentage of non-human animals who have signed up for a 3D physical incarnation, keeping close company with our species, with humans, it's a microcosm. These are animals on a mission, a soul mission to help our species wake up, to help our species evolve, to help our species survive ourselves, to help our species reconnect with our hearts, with one another, with this planet. These animals are special and they are here to help us. It's a very humbling act to accept their gift. It's a very humbling act, especially as an adult human, to say, I still need so much help myself. I can't do this without you. I don't know what to do. I've lost my connection with my heart. I've lost my connection with my soul. I don't know how to live at this deeper, higher, lighter vibration frequency at this soul level. Will you show me? Will you guide me? Will you teach me? If you're listening to Let's Talk to Animals podcast, your pet has called you. They are inviting you to wake up and understand that if you're listening, you have said yes. So this brings us all the way back to point number 1, which is energy alignment, awareness, understanding what's really happening here. You have received an invitation and you have accepted it. So now it's time to step into that and accept the messy middle that happens to us all, that happens to throughout our journey. There are going to be days when it's going to just feel like we're flying. There are going to be days when it feels like we're digging a deep trench underground with no end in sight. There are going to be days when it feels like we're wearing concrete shoes. That's just the nature of the soul awakening. Are you in? Then every moment is a new moment. Every day is a new day. Just keep going and you can't help but evolve. And don't forget to ask your pet for help. Ask them for help with anything. I just don't feel like I'm hearing this animal that I'm talking with clearly. Can you help me reconnect to the love that you feel for your pet? I keep a little photo of my Pearl, my soul bird, right behind my laptop. So when I'm doing sessions, when I'm teaching, when I'm recording this podcast for you, I can always see him. I can see his cute little face. And when I see him, I come right back home to my heart. So that's something that you can, even if your pet is with you, I can't always have Miss Petal, who's Pearl's reincarnation, with me when I'm recording, because all you would hear would be her. As much as I love her voice, I realize that could be a little distracting when you're trying to listen to a podcast. So maybe you can't have your pet with you all the time, but you can find a way to bring their energy with you all the time so that when you need it, you can reconnect to your heart instantly. So just understanding what's really going on here. When you connect with your pet, if they're in spirit, you connect with that energy of the love that you still share. The pets have told me again and again and again and again and again over the years, if the love is still there, the relationship is still there, body optional. Your pet does not need to have a 3D physical body to help you. In fact, they are more powerful when they don't have a physical body, just like we are more powerful when we don't have a physical body. There's no inhibitions, there's no blinders, there's no necessary amnesia, so we can learn the lessons that we signed up for. So when your pet has passed to spirit, they have even more energy and guidance to share with you. So those are the tips that I have for you today to align your energy for clearer, more confident, more consistent and supportive animal communication conversations with your own pet, other animals, with wild animals and plants, with anyone, including our own species that you might wish to talk with. I hope that this episode has been supportive and encouraging for you As a developing communicator, it is my honor to be in community with you. And I look forward to your feedback on this episode. What landed with you? Where would you like to dig deeper? What specifically are you struggling with that you would like insight into? Your feedback and your insights and your questions really do help me shape future episodes. I go to the animals, I ask for insights, and what offered to me, I come and I offer to you. So please do take a moment and leave a review if this podcast is useful and supportive to you. It really does help the show remain visible. It gives me a lot of encouragement to keep recording episodes that I know are on point and useful for you. And it's fun. I love to hear from you. So thank you again for being a part of the Let's Talk to Animals community. Stay tuned for 2 weeks from now. A new fresh episode will be dropped. If you have not yet subscribed or followed the show wherever you like to watch or listen, please do that now so you get first dibs. And you'll find the link below to register for my weekly love letter. My love letters community, they get a free weekly e-newsletter with upcoming intuitive development for pet parents trainings, challenges, and other workshops that I'm offering, special discounts for my programs and services that nobody else gets, and announcements about new podcast episodes dropping, among much more. So I look forward to seeing you there as well. Sending you and your pets all my love, and bye for now. I have so enjoyed sharing this episode with you. If you're new to the Let's Talk to Animals community and you've enjoyed this episode, please do leave us a review on your favorite streaming service or drop a comment wherever you like to listen. I love to hear from you, and your feedback truly helps me shape future episodes based on your interests and needs. If you're not already in my weekly love letters community, head over to animallovelanguages.com to opt in. Your welcome email will include $25 off your first pet session with me, and you'll be the first to know when a new podcast episode drops. If you're interested in learning more about the work I do communicating with animals, offering pet Reiki, and teaching animal communication, please visit me at animallovelanguages.com. Click on Schedule for Pet Sessions and Programs for all the information about my new Animal Communication Adventure to Mastery student program and the live animal communication practice circle I run for student practitioners. And I look forward to welcoming you back here very soon for a fresh new episode of Let's Talk to Animals. Okay, all my love. Bye for now.